Even if Job means the end of theodicy as we know it, there's still a few things about evil and suffering and God that can be learned from this story and from others in Scripture. The most crucial thing is that evil and suffering are not punishments for things we do wrong. I'll say that again because I want it to get through. Evil and suffering, the bad things that happen to us, are not punishments for things we do wrong. The whole premise of Job's story is his innocence. The plot doesn't work if he's not good. He's innocent. That's what makes what happens to him after that so startling and disturbing to the reader. Now, it is a natural human impulse, I think, to correlate suffering with wrongdoing. We do it to ourselves all the time, blaming ourselves for something bad that has happened to us or to someone we love. Sometimes we do this superstitiously, okay? As when we think a hurtful word to a friend the day before is to blame for the stomach bug that afflicts us the night after. Or sometimes we blame ourselves desperately, as when we worry we should or could have done something more to help someone who's died of a drug overdose or of substance abuse. But we also do it to others, holding them accountable for the suffering that they undergo, for the ill that visits them. Consoling ourselves. This is a way to console ourselves by thinking that they deserve whatever happens to them, and we're somehow to blame for it. It's a natural human impulse, as I said, a reflex of sorts, a mechanism by which we try to make order out of suffering, which we have to do if we're not simply to lie in bed every day of the world. But they are delusions. They are wrong. Some evils have clearly explicable, if still mind-boggling, reasons. They're the results of human sin, the misfires of human freedom. These are things like genocides or the Holocaust or murder or theft or something of that sort. But many of the day-to-day evils that afflict us, ordinary car accidents, cancers, premature deaths, and so on, these don't have clear reasons of this sort. It's hard to say they're the clear result of bad human intentions when they weren't intended by us at all. They just happen. And the moral of the book of Job is that it's no use trying to twist their random character into some sort of order by pretending that they are the just deserts of sin somewhere down the line of one's life. Some evils just happen. And even those that do have clear explanations have a kind of absurd excess, a sort of unnecessary, why did it quite have to be so badness that lays them at the feet of the Lord of heaven and earth. To which said Lord of heaven and earth answers only, where were you when I laid the foundations of the world? The only course of action available to us, I think, is to sweat the question out in prayer, as Job did, as the letter of the Hebrews invites us to do, as did the psalmist, as did Jesus himself, who, while he hung from the cross, quoted Psalm 22. This, the Word made flesh, the Word who bleeds, is God's only word about suffering this side of the life to come. The affirmation simply that God himself has drunk the cup of suffering to the last dregs. See, the words of Job could very well have been Jesus's that day, Good Friday. Though himself the second person of the Trinity incarnate, Jesus groped futilely for any experience of God, any consolation from the one he called Father, saying, I go forward, but he is not there, or backward, and I cannot perceive him. When faced with the end of his life, the seeming coming to naught of all for which he and his followers had fought, Jesus turned to his prayer book, as it were, or maybe better, to his hymnal, That's what the Psalms were for Jesus. Turn to his hymnal, and he croaked out a song somehow. Rather than mythologize the crucifixion and imagine it as the death of some superhero, we would do better to think about it as the death of a worn-out man whose dying breaths were consumed by whimpering, "Abide with me. Fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens. Lord, with me abide." To a God whom he thinks no longer listens, or a God of whose existence he no longer has any evidence. Friends, ours is the only God who has himself ever been an atheist. The only God who himself has modeled for us the only way out of utter disbelief and despair: to pray and to sing.